Good morning, good morning, good morning. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful day here in the Ozarks. Anywho, I am Louie Ann, Blackberry Rock Homestead, and I have decided since January the 1st I have been reading. There was a few days I missed, which was an emergency, which it couldn't be avoided. Just like yesterday, I only read one chapter. It was an emergency. Um, which I really don't want to go into detail. I mean, good morning, Tiny Tim. What went on? I just want to respect my mom's privacy. So we are reading First Samuel. I'm gonna read 27 again because I don't remember exactly where we was at yesterday. Um, so I'm gonna start with 27, and I'm gonna try to finish First Samuel. And we're learning about David. I don't know what I did. There we go. Chapter 27. And David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. There is nothing better for me than that I should speedily escape into the land of the Philistine, and Saul shall despair of me to seek me any more in any coast of Israel. So shall I escape out of his hand. And David arose, and he passed over with 600 men that were with him unto Achish, the son of Maach, king of Gath. And David dwelt with Achish at Gath, he and his men, every man with his household, even David with his 2 wives, and Hinnom the Jezreelitess, and Abigail the Carmelitess, Nabal's wife. And it was told Saul that David was fled to Gath, and he sought no more again for him. And David said unto Achish, If I have now found grace in thy eyes, let them give me a place in some town in the country, that I may dwell there. For why should thy servant dwell in the rural city with thee? Then Achish gave him Ziklag that day, wherefore Ziklag pertained unto the kings of Judah unto this day. And the time that David dwelt in the country of the Philistines was a full year and 4 months. And David and his men went up and invaded the Geshurites, and the Jezreelites, and the Amalekites, for those nations were of old the inhabitants of land, as thou goest to Shur, even unto the land of Egypt. And David smote the land, and left neither man nor woman alive, and took away the sheep and the oxen, and the asses and the camels, and the apparel, and returned and came to Achish. And Achish said, Whither have ye made a road today? And David said, Against the south of Judah, and against the south of Jerahmeelites, and against the south of the Canaanites. And David saved neither man nor woman alive to bring tidings to Gath, saying, Lest they should tell on us, saying, So did David, and so will be his manner all the while he dwelt in the country of Philistines. And Achish believed David, saying, He hath made his people of Israel idly to abhor to him, therefore he shall be my servant forever. Chapter 28. And good morning, Rebecca. And it came to pass in those days that the Philistines gathered their armies together for warfare to fight with Israel. And Achish said unto David, Know thou assuredly that thou shalt go out with me to battle, thou and thy men. And David said to Achish, Surely thou shalt know what thy servant can do. And Achish said to David, Therefore will I make thee keeper of my head forever. Now Samuel was dead, and all that Israel had lamented him, and buried him in Ramah, even in his own city. And Saul had put away those that have familiar spirits and the wizards out of the land. And the Philistines gathered themselves together, and came and pitched in Shunah. And Saul gathered all Israel together, and they pitched in Gilboa. And when Saul saw the host of the Philistines, he was afraid, and his heart greatly trembled. And when Saul inquired of the Lord answered him not, neither by dreams, nor by Urim, nor by prophets. Then said Saul unto his servants, Seek me a woman that hath a familiar spirit, that I may go to her, and inquire of her. And his servant said to him, Behold, there is a woman that hath a familiar spirit at Endor. And Saul disguised himself, and put on other remnant. And he went, and 2 men with him. They came to the woman by night. And he said, I pray thee, divine unto me by the familiar spirit, and bring me him up whom I shall name unto thee. And the woman said unto him, Behold, thou knowest what Saul had done, how he hath cut off those that have familiar spirits, and the wizards out of the land. Wherefore then layest thou a snare for my life, to cause me to die? And Saul sware to her by the Lord, saying, As the Lord liveth, there shall no punishment happen to thee for this thing. Then said the woman, Whom shall I bring up unto thee? And he said, Bring me up Samuel. And when the woman saw Samuel, she cried with a loud voice, and the woman spake to Saul, saying, Why hast thou deceived me? For thou art Saul. And the king said unto her, Be not afraid, for what sawest thou? And the woman said unto Saul, I saw gods ascending out of the earth. And he said unto her, What form is he of? And she said, An old man cometh, and he is covered with a mantle. And Saul perceived that it was Samuel, that he stooped with his face to the ground and bowed himself. And Samuel said to Saul, Why hast thou disquieted me to bring me up? And Saul answered, I am sore distressed, for the Philistines make war against me, and God is departed from me, and answered me no more, neither by prophets nor by dreams. Therefore I have called thee, that thou mayst make known unto me what I shall do. Then said Samuel, Wherefore then thou asked of me, seeing the Lord is departed from thee, and is become thine enemy? And the Lord hath done to me as he spake by me, for the Lord hath rent the kingdom out of thy hand, and given it unto thy neighbor, even to David, because thou obeyest not the voice of the Lord, nor executed his fierce wrath upon Amalek. Therefore hath the Lord done this thing unto thee this day. Moreover, the Lord will also deliver Israel with thee into the hand of the Philistines, and tomorrow shall thou and thy sons be with me. The Lord also shall deliver the hosts of Israel into the hand of the Philistines. Then Saul fell straightward all along on the earth, and was sore afraid, because of the words of Samuel. And there was no strength in him, for he had eaten no bread all that day, nor all the night. And the woman came unto Saul, and saw that he was sore troubled, and said unto him, Behold, thy handmaid hath obeyed thy voice, and I have put my life in my hand, and have hearkened unto thy words which thou speakest unto me. Now therefore I pray thee, hearken thou also unto the voice of thy handmaid, and let me set a morsel of bread before thee, and eat, that thou mayst have strength when thou goest thy way. But he refused, and said, I will not eat. But his servants together with the woman compelled him, and he hearkened unto their voice. So he rose from the earth, and sat upon the bed. And the woman had a fat calf in the house, and she took haste and killed it, and took flour and kneaded it, and did bake unleavened bread thereof. And she brought it before Saul and before his servants, and they did eat. Then they arose up and went away. Chapter 29. Get me a drink real quick. Now the Philistines gathered together all their Amalekites and Aphek, and the Israelites pitched by a fountain which is in Jezreel. And the lords of the Philistines passed on by hundreds and by thousands, but David and his men passed on in the rearward with Achish. Then said the princes of the Philistines, What do these Hebrews here? And the Achish said unto the princes of the Philistines, Is not this David the servant of Saul, the king of Israel, which hath been with me these days or these years? And I have found no fault in him since he fell unto me unto this day. And the princes of the Philistines were wroth with him, and the princes of the Philistines said unto him, Make this fellow return, that he may go again to his place which thou hast appointed him, and let him not go down with us to battle, lest in the battle he be an adversary to us. For wherewith should he reconcile himself into his master, should it not be with the heads of these men? Is not this David of whom they sung one to another in dances, saying, Saul slew thousands, and David his 10,000s? Then Achish called David and said unto him, Surely as the Lord liveth, thou hast been upright, and thy going out and thy coming in with me in the host is good in my sight, for I have not found evil in thee, since the day of thy coming unto me unto this day. Nevertheless, the Lord's favor thee not. Wherefore now return and go in peace, that thou displease not the lords of the Philistines. And David said unto Achish, But what have I done, and what hast thou found in thy servant so long as I have been with thee unto this day? That I may not go fight against the enemies of my lord, the king. And Achish answered and said to David, I know that thou art good in my sight as an angel of God, notwithstanding the princes of the Philistines have said, He shall not go up with us to the battle. Wherefore now rise up early in the morning with thy master's servants that are come with thee, and as soon as ye be up early in the morning, have light, depart. So David and his men rose up early to depart in the morning to return into the land of the Philistines. And the Philistines went up to Jezreel. Chapter 30. And it came to pass when David and his men were come to Ziklag on the third day, the Amalekites had invaded the south, and Ziklag, and smitten Ziklag, and burned it with fire. And it had taken the women captives that were therein, they slew not and had taken the women captive that were therein, they slew not any, either great or small, but carried them away, and went on their way. So David and his men came to the city, and behold, it was burned with fire, and their wives and their sons and their daughters were taken captives. Then David and the people that were with him lifted up their voice and wept until they had no more power to weep. And David's two wives were taken captives, Ahinoam the Jezreelite, and Abigail the wife of Nabal the Carmelite. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spake of stoning him, because the soul of all people was grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughters. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. And David said to Abiathar the priest, Ahimelech's son, I pray thee, bring me hither the ephod. And Abiathar brought thither the ephod to David. And David inquired at the Lord, saying, Shall I pursue after this troop? Shall I overtake them? And he answered, Pursue, for thou shalt surely overtake them, and without fail recover all. So David went, he and 600 men that were with him, and came to the brook Bezar, where those that were left behind stayed. But David pursued, he and 400 men, for 200 abode behind, which were so faint that they could not go over the brook Bezar. And they found an Egyptian in the field, and brought him to David, and gave him bread, and he did eat, and they made him drink water. And they gave him a piece of cake of figs, and 2 clusters of raisins. And when he had eaten, his spirit came again to him, for he had eaten no bread, nor drunk any water 3 days and 3 nights. And David said unto him, To whom belongest thou, and whence art thou? And he said, I am a young man of Egypt, servant to Amalek. And then my master left me, because 3 days agone I fell sick. We made an invasion upon the south of Cherethites, and upon the coast which belonged to Judah, and upon the south of Caleb, and we burned Ziklag with fire. And David said to him, Canst thou bring me down to this company? And he said, Swear unto me by God that thou wilt neither kill me nor deliver me unto the hands of my master, and I will bring thee down to this company. When he had brought him down, behold, they were spread abroad upon all the earth, eating and drinking and dancing, because all the great spoil that they had taken out of the land of the Philistines and out of the land of Judah. And David smote them from the twilight even unto the evening of the next day, and there escaped not a man of them, save 400 young men which rode upon camels and fled. And David recovered all that the Amalekites had carried away, and David rescued his 2 wives. And there was nothing lacking to them, neither small nor great, neither sons nor daughters, neither spoil nor anything that they had taken to them. David recovered all. And David took all the flocks and the herds which they drove before those other cattle, and said, This is David's spoil. And David came to the 200 men which were so faint that they could not follow David, whom they had made also to abide at the brook of Bizar. And they went forth to meet David, and to meet the people that were with him. And when David came near to the people, he saluted them. Then answered all the wicked men and the men of Baalah of those that went with David, and said, Because they went not with us, we will not give them aught of the spoil that we have recovered, save to every man his wife and his children, that they may lead them away and depart. Then said David, Ye shall not do so, my brethren, with that which the Lord hath given us, who have preserved us and delivered the company that came against us into our hand. For who will hearken unto you in this manner? But as his part is that goeth down to the battle, so shall his part be that tarrieth by the stuff. They shall apart alike. And it was so from that day forward that he made it a statute and an ordinance for Israel unto this day. And when David came to Ziklag, he sent of the spoil unto the elders of Judah, even to his friends, saying, Behold, a present for you of the spoil of the enemies of the Lord. To them which were in Bethel, and to them which were in South Ramah, and to them which were in Jadar, and to them which were in Ara, and to them which were in Spithmoth, and to them which were in Estemoa, and to them which were in Rachel, and to them which were in the cities of Jerahmeelites, and to them which were in the cities of Kenites, and to them which were in Hormah, and to them which were in Ashan, and to them which were in Adak, and to them which were in Hebron, and to all the places where David himself and his men were wont to haunt. Chapter 31. Now the Philistines fought against Israel, and the men of Israel fled from before the Philistines, fell down, slain in Mount Gilboa. And the Philistines followed hard upon Saul and upon his sons, and the Philistines slew Jonathan and the Abinadab and Melchishua, Saul's sons. And the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was sore wounded of the archers. Then said Saul unto his armor bearer, Draw thy sword with thrust, and Then said Saul unto his armor bearer, Draw thy sword and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through and abuse me. But his armor bearer would not, for he was so afraid. Therefore Saul took a sword and fell upon it. And when his armor bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise upon his sword and died with him. So Saul and his 3 sons and his armor bearer and all his men that same together. And when the men of Israel that were on the other side of the valley, and they that were on the other side of Jordan, saw that the men of Israel fled, and that Saul and his sons were dead, they forsook the cities and fled, and the Philistines came and dwelt in them. And it came to pass on the morrow, when the Philistines came to strip the slain, that they found Saul and his 3 sons fallen in Mount Gilboa. And they cut off his head, and stripped off his armor, and sent into the land of the Philistines round about, to publish it in the house of their idols, and among the people. And they put his armor in the house of Ashtoreth, and they fastened his body to the wall of Bethshem. And when the inhabitants of Jabesh Gilead heard of that which the Philistines had done to Saul, all the valiant men arose, went all night, and took the body of Saul and the bodies of his sons and the wall of Bethshan, and came to Jabesh and burned them there. And they took their bones and buried them under a tree in Jabesh and fasted 7 days. That is the end of 1 Samuel. Tomorrow I will start on the second book of Samuel, which is otherwise the second book of the Kings. There really isn't a whole lot there on, what it's about. But we will jump and read second book of Samuel, or basically the second book of Kings. Start on that tomorrow. So, like every reading I've done, I like to end with prayer, except for yesterday, which yesterday was an emergency case. So if you don't mind, bow your heads, unless you're doing something where you can't bow your heads. I mean, some people do listen to my reading of the word, and I do appreciate that very much. So if you don't bow your heads, don't mind, bow your heads. Lord, bless all those people that are in the chat today and that will rewatch this at a later date. Bless them, heal them, comfort them. Let them know you are there for them. And Lord, please keep me in your prayers as I go about doing what I need to do, whatever it may be. And Lord, keep my sweet mama in your prayers as well, and keep our family in your prayers. And heal her, Lord. Stop the pain that she's having. Help her deal with whatever is going on with her. And Lord, give knowledge to the doctors and the surgeons and all that people that we run into with her care, dealing with her care. And Lord, I also pray for those people around the world, whether they be in Ukraine, Russia, Iran, Iraq, it don't matter. I pray for those as well. And Lord, I pray for those people that are sick, whether they be in the hospital or at home. No matter the illness, no matter the disease, I pray for their healing, and I pray for their comfort. And I pray for their families' comfort. And I pray for their families for knowledge to help take care of them if they need to be took care of. And Lord, I pray for our president. I pray for our country. And I pray for our world. I pray that there is healing in our land, healing in our presidency, healing and knowledge. And I pray that you show the evil that is going on. And Lord, I pray that there's more people that follow you now than ever before. And Lord, I understand some things may come to pass in order for you to come back. But I pray that you come back soon. And Lord, I also pray for those that are having the burdens of the high gas prices and the inflation that is going on. I pray there is help for them. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So I shall see you tomorrow. And everyone have a very blessed day.